Welcome to our last session of the day. This is Content Commerce and Closing the Purchase Loop with Video. I'm so excited to have this conversation with three super smart people. So let's just kick it off. Why don't we start with tell me who you are, your role, and whether you think video is evolving into a performance marketing medium. We will start with Mario.
Cool. Well, hi, everybody. So I'm Mario Aguirre. I am a VP Group Director at Digitas, part of Publicis Group. I have worked on a number of different accounts. Right now, I'm one of the Maison leads on LVMH specifically. And to answer your question, is video turning into a performance channel? I think the short answer is yes, in different mediums and depending on what mindset or the setting you are. But I think you've probably heard this a lot. The funnel is collapsing or the funnel has collapsed. And there's a lot of different tactics and, strategies that you can implement now because consumers don't think linearly anymore. It's, Amazon has the buy now button, like it's media, right? So like it's, depending on the different medium you're in, it can be a shoppable experience if you want it to be. And that's honestly what consumers are expecting more of, especially the younger generation.
Hi, I'm Mallory Armstrong, and I lead our advanced TV data strategy and measurement at Yahoo. So I'm building our analytics product suite that helps our clients just understand how to bridge that gap from linear into all the digital channels. And then
Video is evolving into a performance medium.
Yeah, so I definitely think that we're seeing a lot of interest in whether video can and should evolve into performance medium. So I think now is a time where we're seeing a lot of interest in figuring out how to do test and learn, whether that means that its primary purpose should be performance or whether just trying to better understand the situations, to Mario's point, in different settings that it can be a performance vehicle is kind of where we're at.
Hi, guys. I'm Elizabeth Catonia. I'm the Group Director for Agency Partnerships and Agency Insights at Kroger Precision Marketing. For those of you who don't know, Kroger Precision Marketing is the retail arm for Kroger, the retail media arm, sorry. We have 62 million households that we're reaching all the time to make sure that advertising is more relevant and more effective. And so regarding if it's video as a performance measure, just because we have sales doesn't mean something has to be a performance measurement campaign. So we have incredible signals on the front end because of pre-optimized data. So whether you're measuring sales or you're not, we have that. But sales could be a great secondary signal as well.
So we have buyer, we have kind of media tech platform, and then we have, I'm going to call you a brand for now, a brand, retail brand. So that's sort of all the pieces of the chain, which I think is helpful. So we are in the midst of two shifts. So we have content consumption from linear to streaming and just fragmentation. That's one. And then we have, which seems like it should have happened a long time ago, but buyers being more focused on outcomes. It seems like it, or at least it seems like buyers are more focused on outcomes. They probably have been always focused on outcomes, but at least we're talking about it now. So how do those two things change how we need to measure video?
Want me to go?
Sure.
Okay, so we're locking eyes, so I feel like I'm going to be right. Purchase signals are essential today, and they're absolutely necessary. Brand marketers cannot afford to think about things in silos of brand or performance. Seamless commerce is moving fast too, so campaigns need to be able to build brands and to sell.
Yes, but does it change how you measure though? Does it change, or rather, if, as we heard in this previous session, if current currencies and measurement are kind of built for linear and now things are shifting to streaming, does that need to change anything?
I think there's a lot we need to learn right now, especially because if someone like Kroger Precision Marketing, the signals that we have, we can really impact business, but we need to do it together. And we need to say, what are your KPIs, where you're trying to go? We can't solve for everything, but we can solve for a lot. So I think it, depending on what the campaigns are, we can kind of figure out what it should be.
Mallory or Mario, does this affect CTV specifically? Does it affect linear, or does it affect both?
Yeah, it definitely affects both. linear to streaming. That shift has been, just shifting more towards streaming in general. Actually, retail media specifically, and the investment there. I think something like in 2-3 years, 25% of all digital investment will be actually in retail media. More and more, advertisers are moving towards addressable needs or tactics or targeting, right? And more accountability in terms of proving out the ROI. So in terms of shifting to streaming, it does unlock additional, technical, availabilities in terms of tracking and measurement, and that does unlock opportunities to explore a little bit more in terms of, outside of the GRP. How many households are you reaching? How many unique households are you reaching? We can expand more into, sales data eventually, and specifically depending on the offering, the partner, the firewall or not firewall. There's different opportunities and ways to measure, but yeah, I think it opens up the door in the conversation to, think about measurement in a different way, especially when it comes to CTV.
Mallory, did you want to?
Yeah, it's pretty similar, but I think that, so because my background when I moved into the media space was a video platform, we've actually been measuring video for a really long time tied to outcomes, because there was always a question of proving that efficacy and is it worth the cost? And that was just like kind of your standard digital video. Now it's CTV, and it's even more expensive in a lot of cases. So I think that we think about the components of like what's happening on a TV screen, and considering like linear and CTV technically is still video on a TV screen, which is the largest canvas and can grab the most attention. To Elizabeth's point, it's more about that it is still it's still branding vehicle, but like bringing those two things together and those data insights together, so you can just do a better job of overall management through the whole team structure and just the strategies. So not so much having these separate considerations of like, oh, I'm only doing this in branding, I'm only thinking about branding, I don't really know how that impacts, and then there's a separate team. We need to have them be coming together, and you're seeing a lot of that happening.
Mario, there's a lot of conversations around silos on the agency side too. Is your team siloed, or do you measure across brand and performance and CTV and linear? Do you plan and buy that way yet?
Honestly, depends. No. It depends on the account, right? Depends on the account and the maturity of the client, and also their tech stack and how they're set up, and honestly their learning agenda and the way that the work is set up. Obviously we want to consult and drive them towards a specific way in terms of aligning with the what we believe are the right KPIs for the right kind of stage in the consumer journey, if you will, right? Yeah.
So that was an off-script question. Sorry about that, but it just came up. But the actual question I was going to ask is, so when it comes to video and purchase behavior, if we do think about it as a performance medium, what are you measuring now? And or what are you being asked to measure?
Yeah, I mean the main thing clients want to know is, are we driving sales? Simply, it's easier to. It's harder to do than. But it's possible, right? There's different mediums, depending on the different types of ways that you're buying video. So let's just take CTV, for example. If you're working with a very specific partner, maybe they have a solution in-house that can measure, from impression to sales. Amazon is a great example there. But then, you're kind of forced to work within Amazon, right? But then there's other solutions that you can implement. And this is something that we do for a CPG brand where, we're buying CTV, there's digital impressions out in the space, and people are buying, on the shelves at different retailers. So there's integrations that are available. One example I can give is Trade Desk has an integration with IRI, and that provides offline sales data. So then there's an element of some modeling that you can do in terms of exposed households or exposed, uniques. Did those uniques actually end up buying your product? Depending on IRI, do some modeling, apply some attribution, and also some average, whatever sales data you can get, and do some modeling that way. So that is like a proxy for a partner or an advertiser. It's not DTC, right? That where their products are sold elsewhere. DTC is a little bit easier because there's more digital pixels you can implement. There's different platforms that offer that kind of offering. So now it's a little bit more straightforward.
Digital first, right? Maybe one more question is, where is the sell side falling short, you see? And I guess we have to clarify, whether it's linear or CTV or digital video. You can pick which one, but where are you like, no, we need those metrics. Why don't you give them to us?
Well, I mean, if advertisers want sales data, sometimes the vendor can't provide sales data, right? Because it depends on where the product is being sold. So, so that's challenge number one. Challenge number two is, are those integrations in place so that you can do some kind of measurement? So IRI, like the example I gave, maybe not all partners have the integration with IRI, for example, right? So there's different measurement, partnerships that can be established ahead of time. Also, the fragmentation doesn't help. So like, the walled gardens, like you have to only share data with, us and nobody else. So compliance is a big issue as well.
Mallory, as the seller, the media owner, what can you measure from an outcomes or shopping perspective as a CTV provider?
So we also have the integrations and partnerships. Our solution is in-flight sales analysis. So we've been doing that since 2017, and tied to CTV, we'll work with third parties like the Circana IRIs and CS's, previously Catalina. So that gives you a very good sampling of the purchase data happening in retailers for CPG, as more purchases have also happened online, similarly in parallel as viewership is kind of changing too. We're starting to have additional partnerships to capture some of that purchase activity. And also Yahoo sits on top of purchase data that is proprietary to us. And again, it kind of parallels with TV. Essentially, you have different fragmentation, but being able to stitch that together and having at least directional insights can be done in real time now, which in the last number of years has been a really big change for CPG companies, where to kind of go off of that, like, so we are asked to measure in real time tied to sales so that you can inform optimizations. Something that I feel like we do as consultants to our client partners, though, is also bring back to the learning agenda, because just because you can doesn't always mean you should. And if you're using like real-time signals on sales and trying to optimize everything, including CTV, you might be missing a lot of important information. So we've done analysis where you can identify that, right? It depends a lot about the type of audience that you're getting and what combination of format, messaging, channel works best for them, and just being able to make your media dollars more efficient with those direct things. And then just also understanding that you can also look at the sales data. So were you getting more sales from new buyers? Was it coming from getting them to buy a more expensive product? Were you getting them to buy more quantity? Were you getting them to purchase more products across your portfolio? I think when we were kind of prepping around learning agendas, I think that's a really important part, because you need to balance out just the access to the data and the speed now.
Do you have moments where, let's say Mario is your client, do you have moments where you have to go, we can give you this information, but is this information actually going to help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish? Like, do you have to have those kind of hard conversations?
We do. But not with Mario, because Mario, no. No. We do. I mean, like, I think that just goes back to kind of like our general sales principles. When we're asked to do something, instead of just always saying yes or no, we always want to qualify the questions. Like, let's understand what you're trying to achieve. What is the real goal here? What is the hypothesis you want to test? And then we can be, yes, we can do that. Also, here's another thing we might want to look at. And what we aim to do is try to provide our clients with basically greater value for every media dollar that they run through Yahoo, informed by data. So yes, in real time, but also taking that moment to pause after campaigns or at QBRs to provide greater analysis across what's been happening, so that they can continue to use that to inform. Because CPG for a long time, and I know the commerce is not just CPG, but there's a lot going on there with Retail Media Network, is familiar with doing those long-term test and learning plans. So
it's interesting because Mario mentioned walled gardens. You even said kind of you're a little bit of a walled garden yourself because you've got your own data. We go over to Elizabeth, who could possibly be considered a walled garden as well. That's one of the challenges that we've heard about retail media networks, is that you mentioned Amazon, Mario. I'm like, that's one of the biggest walled gardens there is, right? Are you a walled garden, Elizabeth? And And is that necessarily a bad thing?
Yeah, typically when you hear buy side talk about walled gardens, it's a negative thing. But for consumers, it's actually a great thing. It means we're protecting their data. And so at Kroger, consumers are at our number one priority. And that's actually what makes us a really good partner for media, because we care not about the next ad campaign, but we care about keeping our shoppers happy. And so what we need to stop doing, this is a little provocative, is we need to stop focusing on breaking down those walled gardens and focus on building trusted bridges. So building trusted bridges with partners that have a like-minded focus on permissions and customers and privacy. And so we've done that at Kroger. 3 years ago, we set up a trusted bridge with Roku. We announced one with Disney that's in beta in April. And then there will be something coming with Trade Desk soon that will also have CTV inventory. But what's really exciting about this is we're putting this in the ways that people want to buy, and which ways that people are consuming media, that buyers want to buy, that brands want to be there. And something like Trade Desk is we're figuring out we can put that in your seat. And so now we're breaking down reach and frequency. We're allowing you within a privacy protected permissions way, you can access this and look at it in your whole ecosystem. So there's a lot of advancements happening and excitement.
Can you tell me a little bit more about these? What did you say? Trusted bridge?
Trusted bridge. Yeah.
Tell me more about these trusted bridges. What kinds of metrics do you throw over the bridge?
Well, it really depends on what the offering is. So for something like a Roku campaign, there will be incrementality. There will be standard metrics that come with any Roku campaigns, but then there will be incrementality in sales and rest of market measurement. So it's really bringing the best of both worlds together, the specific data that we can have from all of our signals and our purchase signals at Kroger, but also what comes with a CTV buy.
Do you feel like there's a natural, I feel like your answer is going to be yes, but do you feel like there's a natural synergy between retail media and CTV in particular? Is there a synergy between CTV and linear, or is just retail media just awesome in general?
We're awesome in general, but we're really excited about this. For the last 20 years, we've been hearing that TV needs to be more addressable. And so we're in a place where technology is there for CTV, but of course, because of industry factors, there's a lot of signal loss going on. So whether that be because of privacy or cookie deprecation, that's a real thing. But with the ascendancy of retail media networks, there's a ton of new signals that are coming in from opted-in consumers. And so these are really exciting new signals that are extremely powerful. So 96% of our sales at Kroger, 96% of our sales, yes, it's ridiculous, but it's true, for a $150 billion company are tracked on our loyalty card. It's amazing, right? I know, it's beautiful. And so that allows us to be super, granular in everything we're doing, have great signals, and they're coming back week after week. And the thing here is, and Tamika, we talked about this, it's a value exchange. You are saying you love it, and I get it. They understand when they're coming to Kroger and they're swiping that card, they are getting instant savings. They're getting relevant coupons, and they're getting things like fuel points. For those of us who aren't in New York City, that's exciting. And that is why they continue to use that loyalty card.
Which is interesting. That the anecdote that we're talking about is I moved from Southern California to Northern California. SoCal, we have Ralph's, which is a Kroger brand.
Sure is.
NorCal, we don't have Ralph's. So anyway, and but I told this story about I lived in a number of different apartments over the course of years in Southern California, and every time Kroger would just send me like these little coupons, but they were coupons for everything that I used. They were coupons for like Simply Orange juice and just all of these things. And on the one hand, like it was never creepy. It never felt creepy. One time I was just like, oh, Kroger, oh yeah, that's my little card. And this is what Kroger, this is the value exchange. In exchange for letting you track every purchase I make without even really thinking about it, you actually send me coupons for things that I use. You send me, I think the question though is, and I'm glad that you brought up the privacy pieces, how do you not break that trust with me, right? How do you not make me feel creeped out ever? I don't know if it's targeting. I don't know if you want to be as precise as to be able to show me a CTV ad for something that I just bought. That might be crossing the line.
There's sensitivity metrics that we have in place. So there are categories that we do not focus on, whether that be a woman who may be about, to give birth, or even actually a pet. Because if you just lost a pet, that could be something that could be sensitive. So there's a lot of triggers that we have in there to make sure that, we are being really mindful of our consumers.
So we haven't talked about social shopping, which was one of the topics, and whether that's like the next generation of QVC, which is what I think is like, the live shopping on TikTok, or just allowing people to click to purchase from within a video. How does social shopping start to impact measurement? Mario?
Well, impacts it a lot. So I think we spoke about this. Actually, to answer one of your earlier questions, just because what she said reminded me of something. You asked what new metrics people want to measure, like advertisers are interested in, especially with commerce and retail media being an offering and available. Incremental sales and net new buyers are two very hot metrics that a lot of advertisers care about. And partnerships like retail media partners actually provide that level of visibility and measurement that wasn't available before. So
That is insane, though. So how did brands figure out net new buyers before? I guess is the question. You gotta model it and
yes, yeah,
precise.
mixed market modeling, and it wasn't indirect. I think this is more addressable, faster. A partner like Kroger can tell you, yes, if you didn't spend $1 with us, you wouldn't have gotten this buy. Yeah, so I think that was interesting. Switching gears to social shopping. Yes, I think we were speaking about this last time. On TikTok, right? Like every other ad is like an influencer trying to sell you something. So it's kind of just the worlds are blending, right? And I think you can't not think of social and not think of shopping at the same time, especially when you're on TV or you're watching a show. You're scrolling on your feed. Like I literally did this last night. It was Prime Day, so like I bought like 4 things while I was watching Kitchen Nightmares or something. So so it just happens, right? Yeah. So yes, it's unlocking another kind of shopping opportunity for advertisers to get in front of and understand the mindset of the consumer, how they're buying and what they're buying, and then how to get in front of them. So like we like to, every social impression we like to do, we make them shoppable. We want to make it one click away to like the purchase page for a lot of the retail minded advertisers that we have.
Mallory, how does social shopping impact measurement? And Yahoo, do you consider yourself a social platform? No.
We don't. No, we don't, which is actually interesting because we have a lot of the different channels in the digital ecosystem, but of course not all, like most partners. And then social often are another case of walled gardens for the big ones. And it's interesting, especially like the TikTok and the new research coming out on the younger generation, how they use TikTok for search. That is really interesting because I think kind of similarly to what we've seen with Google in the past, right? They got a lot of credit for because when consumers are already in the process of searching something, there's a lot of things that have happened to get them to that point. And that will, to us, not show up really in our numbers. And unless our clients are able to stitch things together, it's just another piece of the fragmentation that we'll kind of be keeping an eye on and looking for ways to, again, go back to building hypothesis and designs around and trying to collaborate with trusted partners. And Yahoo also consumer first brand. And that is one of the same things we talk about too, is like we very deeply understand and respect that consumer relationship. So I'm hopeful in the future, I think that there might be more opportunity for us to collaborate with our fellow walled gardens in this space to build more of those bridges.
Yeah. Elizabeth, are we gonna see like a Kroger cooking show that you could like live shop at in real time, or like how is social shopping kind of, how are you thinking about social shopping from a measurement perspective?
As an individual, I love it and I'm here for it way too often. But what's really interesting is like a one-off. It really makes a lot of sense for certain categories. Like Mario, you're working on LVMH. So that is a high, category, fashion, electronics. It makes a ton of sense. When you have a product that is low margin, low cost, like CPGs and grocery, it may not make as much sense. And so how we kind of think about where it's really interesting is looking at attributable in-store sales. So we can tell you what's happening in store after being exposed. So that's the way we think it's the best way to look at it versus live shopping for, you're not clicking on a display ad or a video ad to buy 1 pack of rice, No.
But if somebody mentioned the, what is it, Simple Choice, if somebody mentioned the Simple Choice sort of macaroni and cheese brand in a video, and then sort of Simple Choice macaroni and cheese sort of sales spike, is that you try to measure that?
Yeah, and we can measure if someone's exposed to something, if they're buying in store. Again, with that 96% of sales we have, we know what's happening in store too. And still about 90% of sales for grocery are still happening in store. So it's a really important metric to have. And we have that full picture. So we can say they were exposed, oh, they bought online, oh, they bought it in store. So a little bit different, but yeah.
That's the beauty of owning that's the beauty of owning all your data.
Mhm.
Okay, so last question. Are we strictly talking about an attribution when it comes to measuring the performance of video, or is there also a focus on what happens before the sale? Mallory, I think you kind of got at this a little bit, but what are we talking about here?
Well, I think that it depends on the maturity of the client and where they're at in their journey and whether they're still running their performance and their brand team separately or merging them together. I think when we talk about attribution, you can tie sales to a lot of things right now, but then that's just a data point that I think will end up being kind of a starting point of a deeper analysis to understand the levers that you then can control to make that end goal fluctuate. So I think like once we kind of establish some baselines, benchmarks by the different channels and strategies, then you start getting into those things I was mentioning about like wanting to better understand the impact of different creative, thinking through like the audience, but also context, not even in the environment that they're in, but the context of the mindset, emotions of the consumer in the different time periods you're reaching them. And again, it depends on the category and the product. So I'm very interested to getting to that point too, just because from kind of a data and research perspective, those are the times that we come up with some really fun insights that can direct things forward.
Mario or Elizabeth?
Yes.
Is it, yeah, either one, whichever you would prefer.
Video specifically for, measuring sales, right? And video. That's the crux of what we're saying.
Are we just ultimately talking about attribution?
Yeah.
Or or would it be ideal to measure more than just that?
Yeah, well, ideally, yes. And usually it's backwards, right? When you think of video, you don't first think of like measuring sales. Like, for at least over a lot of traditional advertisers, video usually is the medium or the channel that you achieve reach and awareness, right? So that's normally where advertisers start. Things have shifted so much that actually, advertisers are trying to do everything, with all channels. That's where things kind of get a little bit mixed. But I think it's up to the strategist or the agency, anybody who's consulting in terms of outlining, how to think about channels, how to think about tactics, setting up a proper learning agenda so that you understand, how you should invest your dollars, specifically on your objectives, and then outlining very clear KPIs on what we're trying to achieve with what, because it doesn't only have to be about sales. Video plays a very specific role in the consumer decision journey. Yes, the funnel has collapsed, but there is still different weight in terms of what that impression can mean versus other impressions, if that makes sense.
No, it does. So I like what you said. Actually, video is not always thought of as sort of that's not the first place you go is attribution. But I guess maybe the question that I was kind of getting at is, if you start to think about video as a performance medium, is that just attribution? And so, Elizabeth, I will leave the final answer to you.
Yeah, I would say retailers bring in more optimization levers into play for video. So I talked about pre-optimization. We have so many signals. We are optimizing before a campaign even begins. We want to serve to the most qualified households. So that means we're serving relevant messages to the right households at the onset. We can also measure in store. So I know how many cups of yogurt are going to be purchased in the next week. Typically, I know who's been exposed. I can really say, oh, is this incremental? Is this a difference here? And incrementality is really where we're going. And that is a differentiator that retailers are able to bring. So excited about where we're going, but it doesn't always have to be a performance metric.
Must be fun to be a retailer right now.
You know what? It is great.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.